Kirti Suri, working as a SharePoint consultant in nonlinear creations on SharePoint and a Sitecore company. In this video, we'll take a look at how the Power Pivots can be migrated to SharePoint for useful team business intelligence. By this time, you may be thinking, what is Power Pivot? So Microsoft Power Pivot provides an end-to-end system for creating and collaborating on Excel workbooks to deliver enterprise-wide business intelligence. The prerequisites. Power Pivots are a free add-in in Microsoft Excel 2010 and 2013. It comes in two flavors, Excel and SharePoint. By that, I mean installing Power Pivot for Excel on client computer and Power Pivot for SharePoint on the SharePoint farm. Power Pivots also help to connect and relate to multiple data sources. Multiple data sources could either be a SQL Server instance or a custom SharePoint list, even a flat file. Data is downloaded onto the workbook while working with Power Pivots. It can handle millions of data rows. In order to upload an Excel on SharePoint, the file limit is 2 GB. And if you want to work just on the desktop, it is 4 GB. Now some prerequisites. Power Pivot would require SharePoint and SQL Server Enterprise editions, Excel services, Power Pivot for SharePoint installation, analysis services installation in SharePoint mode, and an unattended service account. The process. First, we would need to create a Power Pivot gallery, design the Excel workbooks, add graphs and charts to the workbook, configure analysis services on the farm. As soon as the analysis services have been configured, a data model would be created in SQL Server. And when the data model is created, the data can be refreshed either manually or through a scheduled data refresh. This is the architecture diagram of the same. Power Pivot workbooks are stored within the content database. The analysis services manage the data within the workbook and make it available to the other components. The service also updates the data as part of the data refresh, which are scheduled by the SP timer jobs. By scheduled data refresh, business users can ensure that the workbook data is kept up to date with the data from the source system. Going ahead with the demo. For this, I'll just open an instance of the Excel workbook. I'll choose blank workbook. On top, you can see a Power Pivot tab here. Just click on that and click on Manage. This would open a new pop-up. Choose Get External Data. We can choose from SQL Server, from Access, or the other instances. I choose from OData data feed because I would want to import the data from a SharePoint list. So I'll just choose the URL of my web application, appended by a VTI bin listdata.svc, which is a list service. Now I'll test the connection. This would give me whether my connection has been succeeded or not. Okay, my connection succeeded. I'll just click Next. So I see all these custom lists which are available within my SharePoint site. And I'll go back. On my SharePoint site, I've created, just for the demo purpose, I've created a list called Finance. And there's some dummy data here, like the advisor name and their sales in the month of November or the sales average, etc. So I would just go back to my Excel workbook, choose the finance list. For now, I'm just choosing one list. You can choose multiple lists if you would want to plot a relational data on the graphs. So succeeded, 19 rows have been transferred to my Excel. Now the data is downloaded onto the Excel from SharePoint. I'll just choose a Power Pivot table. and it is here. I'll go ahead choosing the columns, like I would want to show region, and I would want to show the roles for that region, and I would also want to show the average sales in November for each role in a region, and the monthly sales. So this is the data that I would want to show on my graphs. I would just click on Insert tab, choose one of the graphs, like I'll choose a bar graph for now. Not this one, I'll choose another one. Okay. Okay, this looks good. So I'll choose this. Also insert a slicer with the advisor's name. What this slicer will do is it will help me in slicing and dicing the data. So I can choose one of these, and you see the data is getting changed on the graph. So just for this, because he's just a consultant, he's not a manager, so in only one graph is being shown while the others show the other graphs. So I'll choose this, and I'll also choose a style for this. So this is another feature of Excel, of having styles within the graphs. Also choose a pie chart, and it can be plotted. Sure. I'll just make it look better. Okay. And I can choose various skins that are available. In the design tab, I can choose this here, and I'll choose to delete these numbers, because once you hover over these, you'll see the value. So likewise, I'll choose a skin for this as well. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll go to the Advanced tab, Options, Advanced, and I'll choose to remove the horizontal and the vertical scroll as well as the grid lines to make the Excel look more cleaner. And I'll save this on the desktop. Okay. Okay. Another setting that I would want to do here is in the Data tab, in Connections. I'll just choose the connection that I'm using, and I'll refresh data when opening the file. Okay. And I'll save it again. So this is it. On the SharePoint site, I have already created a PowerPivot gallery, which is very easy to create once you have done the PowerPivot installation for SharePoint. So once you go to the site content, like you add an app, you also get an option to create a PowerPivot gallery. So it is available right here. You can just go ahead creating a PowerPivot gallery, and you can upload a document here. So I just go ahead uploading the one that I created, demo May demo finance, this one, and okay. These are the other workbooks that I've created already in the PowerPivot gallery. So I have demo finance here. I'll just click on the Excel. So this is the one that we created right now. I can see I can change the data in here. Now comes the part of refreshing the data once the data has been changed within the SharePoint list. So going back to the SharePoint list, if I go ahead changing the name of the advisor from this and append some data to like this one, and Jill, and I would just append test to it. I'll just choose this again. Okay. So the data has been updated and it should reflect here in the advisor's name, but currently we haven't scheduled the refresh. So this was the one that I created, and here just next to this icon of the Excel workbook there's a manage data refresh option where you can schedule the data refresh. So it gives me an option to enable this. So by default it is scheduled to daily, and this is the minimum time that the schedule will happen. Like it cannot be twice a day. This has been set by SharePoint as a like 1 day in 1 day. So you just cannot choose twice a day or thrice a day because this would put some load onto the database. And this is the data source here being consumed by my Excel sheet. So this is the data feed that we created while exporting the data to Excel from SharePoint. And I'll click OK. So this is it. And once I'll click on my Excel sheet, I would see the data updated. So this is the advisor name, and the schedule will run every day in the time slot that I've set for this Excel. You can add more graphs and charts to this Excel sheet depending on the business requirements.